time. She'll jump in when I guess. Okay, we are live. Good evening. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. We are here next week, and we have Religious Coalition and Executive, the County Executive Jan Gardner, with us tonight. And I'm so excited about this show because we're going to be discussing rental assistance. We will be having an interpreter. Hopefully, she'll be coming on soon for the Latinx community. But right now, we're going to start this show, and I want to thank Nick Brown for joining us. I want to thank Catherine Dorsey and, of course, Executive Jan Gardner. We're going to jump right in into the discussion. If everybody can mute their mic if they're not talking, it'll cut the feedback. So the first question, we all know that there was some money allotted for the first round. So the second round, we had money allotted also. Jan Gardner, could you please tell us like how much money has been allocated to rental and utility assistance?
Well, in the first round, the county put in about $2 million from our Federal CARES Act grant, which was money that we could use to support the COVID response. And the city of Frederick added another $800,000 to that. And that program began last July in 2020 and was administered by the Religious Coalition for Emergency Human Needs. In January, the federal government passed additional funding and allocated about $7.6 million to Frederick County for rental assistance and utility assistance. So about $6.5 million of that is going to rental assistance, about $600,000 to utility assistance, and then the balance is going to cover expenses to advertise the program, get the information out there, as well as to potentially hire some additional part-time staff to help actually work on the details of the program so we can meet the needs of people in the community. So the two programs are a bit different. The initial program had a few more strings attached by the federal government, and the most recent program is much more generous. It covers up to 12 months looking backwards, all the way back to last March. It can cover 3 months going forward. It's based on a sliding scale of income, up to 80% of AMI to qualify. And it has certain documents that are required. I mean, you have to be renting in Frederick County, you have to have lost your income or experienced financial hardship due to COVID, and your household income has to be below that 80% AMI. But they do allow the documents this time to be substituted with affidavit, and they do allow a lot more flexibility. So I know that Nick Brown and Catherine Dorsey, who are here from the Religious Coalition and actually do the day-to-day work, can speak to that a lot better than I can. But just to kind of say why a rental assistance is so important is that, we did have people who were out of work last year.
Jan Gardner, I'm gonna stop you. And I'm gonna stop you real quick.
Okay.
My interpreter came on, so I want to just go with the question, so then she can interpret it for us. So, so the question was, how much money has been allotted for this particular rental assistance?
Okay. Well, I think I already answered that, but it's
yeah, I know.
For rental assistance for the program.
Yeah, I think you went into my other questions, Dan. I got questions, Dan.
Okay, all right. Well,
yeah.
Okay, so I answered the question, so I'll stop there.
Thank you. Okay, so Nick Brown and Catherine, could you tell me how many families benefited from the previous rental assistance?
There were almost 600 households that we assisted last year through the CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Relief Fund last year. So far, we've already approved 312 households since March 15th for the current round of funding. But last year, it was about 840 instances, so people were allowed to reapply, but there were about 600, almost 600 unique households that were approved.
Yeah, and
So
to give
was
that a
it-
little bit of I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Just
Nick.
for
Go
some
ahead, Nick.
perspective,
I was going to say that the scale of of what that activity looked like. Normally in any given year, we serve about 500 households through our normal housing services. So this was compressed into a 6-month period on just the instances. The people, or I'm sorry, the amount of money was even more impressive because that's actually covering an 8-year span, as we usually put out about $250,000 again per year. So we doubled the number of people, and I don't know what the 8 times is, but we did that 8 times over, which was really surprised to see it come through.
and clarifying that,
Yeah.
it's actually 500. When he says 500 households, that includes security deposit assistance. So when we talk about just rental assistance, eviction prevention, in a given year, we help 250 households with eviction assistance. So within 6 months, we did 600 households with rental assistance.
Okay, that's good. So did you know if they were in the county or the city or both? Like it was like
Both.
It was both. Okay. And
As long as they live in Frederick County, that's all we care about.
Okay, great. So I know Jan Gardner was getting into the guidelines of how to apply for the assistance. So I know you guys mentioned that there is a new guideline. Like it wasn't like the old one. So what is that new guideline and how does that work?
I think it's the flexibility is the thing that we've keyed in on the most. I think the most significant difference between last year to this year is they opened it up to folks that are on subsidized housing. So folks on vouchers or public housing were not eligible in the last one. This one they are. So that's a huge change in that. The other piece of that was in some of the tangential household costs. This bill seemed to be very considerate of all of the factors that can cause a household to get behind, and allowed for those costs to be covered. Utility costs, but on a kind of beyond utility to cover some of the other internet costs. That's unheard of now. But we have a fairly significant amount of internet requests that we've already approved. So certainly a different, it's a little bit of a different animal this year for sure.
I will add to that I think the process and documentation aspect, and Jan Gardner was actually mentioning that a little bit, is simplified. We still require proof, like if you have unemployment, or if you have if you were sick due to COVID, or your hours were reduced due to COVID, but the documentation to prove that has been simplified. So for instance, some businesses may have closed, or you can't access your pay stubs anymore because you don't have access to the online system, or your employee may just not be willing to even give you that documentation. And so the self-attestation that people can provide, just describing what their COVID hardship was, is something that we can accept. And it doesn't have to be notarized. It's just a letter that they write describing how COVID has impacted them and prevented them from paying their rent. That's a bit different this year as well.
Yeah, and that's going to be an answer to one of your questions a little bit later as far as access goes. That's the particular important part about that even access. So where we have a less than traditional household makeups, it makes it exponentially easier to handle those cases.
Okay, and Jan Gardner, we thank you so much for bringing the rental assistance into Frederick. Do you foresee having to bring more money in later in the year? I know people are still trying to get on their feet. Do you foresee any more money coming into Frederick when it comes to rental assistance, utility assistance, any hardship assistance? Are you on mute?
You are muted.
You're muted, Jan.
I'm sorry. You think I would be used to that by now. But I'm not sure if the federal government will do another round that's specifically earmarked to rental assistance. The money that we have can be spent now through next September of 2022. And so whichever comes first. All jurisdictions, Frederick County included, and all of our municipalities are receiving money, but we haven't received yet under the Relief Act. So the county is going to get about $50 million, and the 12 municipalities in Frederick County, $45 million. And that money could be used to add into rental assistance if we would need to do that. And so that money supposedly has few federal strings attached to it, but we have not yet seen the rules, and we haven't received the money yet either. And so we're supposed to see half of that in about 60 days, and then the other half a year from now.
Now, we talk about rental assistance. Can people with mortgages apply for this assistance? Because we do have a lot of homeowners in Frederick. If you have a mortgage, can you apply for this assistance also?
This is just for rental assistance specifically. And certainly there's been a need for rental assistance in our community and across the state of Maryland and across the country for that matter. But I will say that the most recent federal relief package did include funding for a program for mortgage assistance. And so when I've been on calls with our federal delegation members, specifically with Senator Cardin, I asked what this mortgage assistance program would look like, and the answer was he didn't know yet. So they literally had to, after legislation passed, write what the parameters of the program would be. But that is out there, and we should know more about that in the future.
So I know that everybody, we've been going to school online, and some people do not have internet access. Tell me, if they do not have internet access and they still need to apply, how can they apply? Like, do they come in the office? Do they make a phone call? How does that work?
We had the benefit of having staff on site, and with these dollars, we're able to increase some positions. So we have some navigators on staff, as well as some in-person folks in the office to make that easy. So there are two. If you do not have internet access, there's two numbers that you can call either one. One is our normal 301 number. The other is an 800 number that we've recently added in just to make sure if anybody needed toll-free access, that we can handle that as well. There is a phone menu.
Could you tell me the number?
Yeah. Our main number is 301-631-2670. And then the
800 number.
Yeah, that one I don't have. Yep.
It's 1-800-220-9528.
800.
And also just to also say 220-9528.
95. Excuse me.
9528.
Okay.
And Nick mentioned the 301-631-2670 number. That's the line you want to call. Extension 128 is what Spanish speakers should dial.
Yeah. All other services, if there is a COVID or non-COVID need, will route depending on. For anybody COVID that needs help walking through those things, those calls will terminate at a navigator. So we'll have staff on that can walk people through. If they have access or not, they can give directions on how to do a manual application. We are still operating from a kind of a decentralized model at the office, but again, there are people that we can make appointments, we can drop off papers, things of that nature.
So I will say, and also it's 228, Taryn, not 2.
Yeah, I know, I've seen it. I know, I got it all wrong.
Oh, no worries. And I will say this too, we encourage folks not to just stop by, because even though we are in the office at different times, there is not a consistent time. And so if you do need to apply in person, definitely give that number a call first. That way we can kind of set up an appointment for you and somebody can meet you there to get your paperwork. And you can also mail it in. We'll accept snail mail. That's okay as well.
Snail mail. We do not like
Yes.
snail mail. So, let me ask you a question. Where I think Jan Gardner, you said that this money will be until 2022. So there is no deadline, correct? It's just till the money's gone. Is that how that works?
Well, the deadline is the end of September 2022, or when the money runs out, whichever comes first. That's how the program parameters are written by the federal government. And so if we do run through all the money and we feel that we need to continue to support rental assistance, there's a possibility additional money could be added, but that is premature to say that at this point in time.
Okay. And so you guys did answer the question about the city and the county. No matter where you live, you can always apply for this assistance. So let me ask you a question. Some of the families have eviction notices, right? If they receive eviction notice, could you tell me if they receive the eviction notice and they're going through the rental process of getting the application and getting things done, is there something sent out to the landlord that they're in the process, or is just like a waiting game?
Yes, we can send letters out to the landlords, letting them know this person has applied and we're working with them. The other great thing too is that if we do have a partnership with legal aid, and so for a lot of cases, legal aid has been able to step in and mediate on behalf of the family so that it doesn't even make it to the courthouse. And we're able to leverage the rental assistance that we have to say, if you drop the court case, we'll be able to pay the back rent. We also can offer the future rental assistance. And because we've been doing this program now for a year, we've developed a lot of relationships with the landlord. So some of those landlords will even reach out to us and say, hey, we have a court case coming up. Did this person contact you? Are you working with them? Have they applied yet? Before they even go forward with the case.
Now, if they apply for last rental assistance, can they apply again for this rental? It does not matter how many times you apply, or is there a limit?
There's an overall limit of 12 months total being covered. So as long as we don't go past that 12-month threshold, folks can come back. I think we had a handful in the last round that came back 5 and 6 times. And I think that the message that I want to convey, that we want to convey today, is anybody who is behind, we want you to apply regardless if you think that you are going to be eligible for COVID or not. One of the kind of weird phenomenons that we come across is folks they'll apply not thinking they have a hardship, and we have to kind of boil down what happened and then tell them this is actually a COVID hardship or otherwise. So it's an interesting thing that we come across in rental assistance services.
And with that 12 months, I want to say too is that it doesn't count if someone was approved through the coronavirus relief funds, however many months they were approved for through that fund does not count towards their 12 months for this fund. So they have a clean slate when they reapply this year for the ERAP. There's always so many acronyms, but they have a clean slate, and when they come and apply this year, and as they can reapply up until we meet that 12-month past due thresholds. But then at that point, if they're still in need, we can also evaluate them and say, okay, you're still not as stable as we would like to see it. We can apply 3 months of future rent to that household after we reach that 12-month threshold. So really it will end up coming up to 15 months worth of rental assistance. So
Jan Gardner, when you were talking with Religious Coalition and you were strategizing these funds, I know I work with lots of contracts and things like that has to do with the budget. Was there some type of structure of how much would be given to per family, or a family can come apply 3 or 4 times and then another family can apply because another family got more money? How did you come up with the budget of how many families can be served, how much money can be given to each family? How did you come up with that budget?
Well, we essentially followed the federal guidelines. I mean, different people are paying different amounts of rent. So, it wasn't necessarily capped on what their rent could be. Obviously, family household size is different. And so it really comes down to the fact that we're just trying to make sure that whatever people are in arrears on, or whatever their rent may be, that we want to make sure we cover that hardship so that that we prevent homelessness and we prevent eviction, because that's the goal. I think it's pretty clear that we know that if people find themselves evicted, find themselves without a place to live, that it costs a lot more money to put that person back into housing stability. I mean, they have to have down payments, they have to move. There's a big cost associated with it. It's disruptive to their children, maybe disruptive to their employment. So it kind of causes a spiraling down. I mean, that's true all the time. And so, because there's been more risk during this pandemic, I think it's really important to try to keep people in the housing that they're in. And sometimes, people may be renting or subleasing. So there's a lot of different situations. And again, I think the folks who administer the program can answer that better than I do. But the county also has recently signed an MOU with the Religious Coalition to provide a little bit of additional money that can be used to fill gaps that don't quite meet their criteria. Because there's always an issue where there's somebody that doesn't quite fit into the program, but they're really still asking for rental assistance or utility assistance. I mean, I had a woman call me who was concerned about utility assistance, and she paid it to her HOA because she was in kind of an apartment complex where that happened. And that kind of fell through the cracks. So we want to make sure that we have a little bit of flexibility to handle these odd circumstances. And probably Nick or Catherine can explain some of those odd circumstances. But, so we're trying to achieve a goal, and we don't want to let some of these weird details prevent reaching the goal.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you got into that, Jen, because that's going to lead to my next question about being how many families were denied in the last first go around, and what could deny you of the program?
Sure. And Kat, I know, can speak to the particular details. The nice part is that, to be ineligible for the CARES dollars in the last round, and even for the Treasury dollars this round, opens up that there's very few people are truly ineligible all the way across. Because we have those other funds that we were providing pre-COVID, it may not be as robust or as comprehensive as some of those federal dollars, but we still have the ability to address the needs in some regard. So I think we had 40 some odd that were denied for various reasons.
It ended up being 85 households ended up being denied, which was about 10% of all applications that we received. And the reasons varied. Some people were denied because they don't live in Frederick County, which is, one of the main things. And some people were denied because they own their home, and unfortunately, it was only rental assistance. We had to deny folks because they were living in housing. So as we mentioned, that's been a big change. Housing, people who are on housing, Section 8 vouchers, living in public housing units, they now can apply for funding, but previously they couldn't. So that's a really great change. We can cover their tenant portion, and that was really a big concern for us last year. But so we're happy to see that change. And then also people who didn't have a COVID hardship, they were denied. But as they also mentioned, the good thing is that the Religious Coalition has been around for so long. We've been doing rental assistance for so long that even when we denied those households, we were able to reroute them just within our own office to our other rental assistance programs. And the county, we can thank the county for that too, because the county, even throughout the regular year, they provide us with rental assistance funding. And so, and the funding has always been really flexible. So those clients who are living in housing or who don't have a COVID hardship, maybe they're on maternity leave or they're sick, but it's not COVID related, or, they had a house fire, car broke down, whatever the case may be, we were able to reroute them through our regular rental assistance program. So nobody was, unless they weren't a Frederick County resident, or if they own their home, nobody was truly denied. They just rerouted.
Right, I understand. So, and when they come in to apply, how long does the process take for them to be approved?
It honestly, we always get that question, and my thing is always it's up to the client because if you come in, and this is why it's so important for us to get out the information of what documentation is required beforehand, because if you come in and you upload all of the documentation that we need, we can get you approved potentially that same day. We can get you approved within 2 days. But if you don't upload the documentation that we need and we have to reach back out to you and ask you for more documentation or ask you for clarifications, then it can take a little bit longer. And then we ask them to give us about a week for us to process the payment. And, right now, we didn't expect, especially because we were offering this program last year, we had no clue that within the first week we were going to approve 250 households, and so it's a lot. We have about 2 people that's processing payments. So processing 250 payments in a week, that's a lot. So we're a little bit behind, but we are churning them out as quickly as we can. And once we get caught up to those households, we ask everyone to give us about a week to process the payments.
So you said that you guys had 2 people that are working. I know I called and said I would volunteer if you guys need help with that. The invitation is still out there. Are you guys looking for volunteers to come help with this process? I know Jan said that you got this time there was money put out for part-time, somebody to part time. But are you guys looking for volunteers to help with this process? Because I know you guys have documents coming from the Spanish speaking community organization. And what other avenues do you guys have documents coming in from? Just there, or how other agencies are submitting documents?
Yeah, I think the overarching is that we'll always need volunteers, all right, whether it's rental assistance or not. Right now, we're still, we've been live for 2 weeks, so we are still trying to get some of that dust settled with particularly the navigators, get them settled and operating. So once we get to that point, then we'll certainly open it up because there are a ton, as Kat could attest to, there's a ton of communications. There's lots of calls and emails that need to go back. And that's again on that handful of staff that are processing that. So it's a lot easier with extra hands, but yeah, we'll get that figured out here directly.
Yep, and so to that end, we recognize that we can't do this with such small staff. So we have brought in additional help, as Jan Garner mentioned. We have hired the program navigator and a program assistant. We have hired an accountant firm to help us process payments. So we definitely recognize that we needed a couple of more hands. And so we are now in that process of onboarding those folks, training those folks. And so we'll have a better handle on what they can handle once we get them onboarded and really get them off and running. But right now we're still kind of training them and getting them acclimated to everything.
Good for you guys. Like I said, my hand is still out there.
Yeah.
We're coming. Don't worry.
I was at this process. Yeah, we definitely. I was a rapid housing supervisor, and so we had to house a lot of homeless families, and we had to do it within 30 days because there was a big tent protest. So I know the process of getting those things done quickly. Mm-hmm. I will definitely, like I said, I will volunteer my time however I can help. And I'm glad that Jan Garner definitely did think about this time of giving money to hire part-time people, because when you don't have the manpower, it does slow up the process. So, and you guys, like I asked about the Spanish-speaking community. How are you guys getting applications from other agencies also?
Yeah, our single point of entry is the Spanish-speaking communities of Maryland. They're our closest partners as far as processing the applications. We asked anybody else, if there's any interest, obviously let us know. But that is our primary port of entry for the Spanish speakers.
We did bring on this year. We also are partnering now with 211. So 211, and they actually just emailed me and said the form is built, so people can call call into 211. 211 will assess the eligibility, and after they assess the eligibility, make sure they know the kind of documentation that they need to provide. They will port that over directly to us, and then they're not actually filling out the applications, but they're doing that initial step of checking if they're eligible and going over what documentation is required, so that when people do come on and apply, they are well aware of what they need to do. And then they will actually send that over directly to us as a direct referral to the navigator, who will work with that person to make sure that they are able to apply within the portal.
Okay, so now when it comes to processing the checks, so how is that? Is that done through Jan Gardner's office? You guys submit to Jan Gardner's office, and Jan Gardner processes the checks, or you guys process checks in Religious Coalition? And in that process, is the check given to the landlord, or is given to the tenant to get to the landlord?
Yeah, we handle the application and the distribution of the folks applying and the distribution of funding, and that's a bit of a a lot of moving parts there, making sure that we've accounted for everyone, and then that goes out directly to the landlord, largely by way of digital transfer. There are certainly folks that don't want the digital transfer, so we have to cut certainly a number of checks, but ideally if we can get that digital piece in, it's going to speed the process up, significantly, waiting on the mail and its current condition, and otherwise. So, always to the vendor wherever possible.
Yeah, and if you do that ACH, it's if we process it before 3 o'clock, it's in their account, but within 24 hours. If we process it after 3 o'clock, it's in their account within 48 hours. So we definitely strongly encourage landlords to, go the ACH route.
Yeah, that is definitely a lot easier than somebody, because you guys have a lot of people at the building picking up checks. If y'all did it that way, that'd just be crazy.
And we sometimes, we understand the situation. So earlier you asked about evictions, like what happens if someone has an eviction.
Yeah.
Our caseworkers have literally dropped checks off at the courthouse. They have literally driven to apartment complexes and brought the checks to the landlord. They've met them at the mall to hand the check off. So we understand that. Yeah, like it's sometimes it's really urgent that we get that money to them to prevent that eviction. And our staff is phenomenal. They will go above and beyond if it means that person is not going to be homeless that evening.
Right, and so about the evictions, they're still putting out evictions. I mean, Jan Gardner, is there a way that we can the county tackle that? Is there a way that could be addressed that about the eviction, or is that just something that the landlord just does?
I thought that the evictions, there's evictions moratorium was extended. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I thought so too. That's what I'm wondering.
Yes and no.
Yeah, the state of Maryland was renewed, right?
Yeah, so the CDC the CDC was supposed to end yesterday. So the CDC declaration, where they can declare that they've been impacted by COVID, they have less than 99,000 as a single filer. They've been trying to pay. They've applied for assistance. That one has been extended until September 30th. But the state of emergency, of course, is still on. However, you have to prove that you've been impacted by COVID. So for those families who haven't been impacted by COVID, we've been seeing evictions still take place.
Got it. And I mean, that's a double-edged sword, I think, because we don't know. I mean, but based on what they feel like is impacted, the landlord might not feel it. And I understand that landlords have to get their money. I think that's been a big discussion also about not only the tenants suffering, landlords are suffering because they still have to keep their building running. So and so I do understand that nuance, but at the same time, if there's a way that it could be buffered, and I guess you guys are doing that with contacting the landlords when evictions do come and they have applied for the program. And also I would say too is that what we've ran into this a few times is that
during this process, leases are also up. And so one of the ways they can get around the eviction is that they just don't offer a lease renewal, or, you know, they give a notice to vacate for other reasons. But that's also what's great about the partnership with Legal Aid, because that's one of the ways that we've been able to mediate and say, okay, well, I understand the lease is up, but if we get this person caught up and if we pay for their future rent, are you willing to renew the lease? Are you willing to extend the lease for another 90 days? And so we can still have some of that negotiation. And we've even literally, like, landlords where for other lease violations, they were like, we're going to put them out. We were able to step in and mediate and say, okay, I understand there's been these lease violations. We'll work with the client. We'll pay their past due rent. You know, don't put them out. And they've been agreeable.
Great. Now, you guys have done really well with answering the questions, and I think it's been very informative. So I know that the first go around was very challenging, and just getting the right families. I know I had a discussion with the Latinx community, and their concern was a lot of people did not get the assistance in the Latinx community. And I don't know, like you said, there was the company, the Spanish speaking community, and things like that. How are you making sure that this information is getting out to the community? Like, I know I wanted to do it to get it out that way. I did ask you guys to come to an event on Saturday to get it out that way. I think we all have to play a role in getting it out to the community. How else are you guys getting out to the community about the rental assistance program?
I think the one big difference between this round and last round is in who's kind of maintaining that piece of it. And last year we had we had to react to a lot of things that were developing in real time. Yep. So we were trying to figure out the distribution pattern along with the outreach pattern. There was a lot to figure out. So this year the county has thankfully taken on the outreach and the advocacy piece of that. And I'm sure county executive can speak to that as well.
Yeah, so Kelly Cambrell, who works in our communications department with Vivian Laxton, we have a department of 2 plus, so it's not a big department. She's been working with folks in our housing department, specifically with Ryan Trout, who you may know. And so they have put out flyers in English and Spanish. They've done outreach to a number of nonprofit organizations, Maryland Legal Aid, the courthouse. There's going to be a lot of videos going out, digital video, radio ads, print ads in the newspaper. And they're also going to actually mail. I know you said you didn't like snail mail, but they're going to mail out to certain census tracts where they have reason to believe those were the hardest hit census tracts. And so I think that there's been money set aside this round to do some more outreach and advertising. And so, we kind of put the people out to do that who know how to best reach the folks that we're trying to reach. And certainly there's a lot of organizations in Frederick County. We're really very blessed in Frederick County that we have a lot of nonprofit human service agencies. They all know each other. They're pretty connected, and they can communicate with each other. And I think there's also flyers going out with some of the food distribution points. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of effort being made. Now, we're always open to suggestions and more ideas because nothing that we do is perfect, and we're all learning along the way. And, I really have to give a big shout out to both Nick and Catherine. I mean, they've done an outstanding job. You can tell they're very passionate about it. They know what they're doing. And, a lot of people throughout the community have stepped up to do things that they hadn't done before. And obviously they've gotten better at it, but it's been a lot of work, a lot of time for people to figure out how to do it and to really serve people and to help people. So I've seen that throughout county government as well, but my hat's off to these folks at the Religious Coalition because they've done an outstanding job, and I say, yay.
Thank you, Janet.
We appreciate it. And I was not that you beat me to it, but I was going to actually compliment the county government as well. county executive, deputy, and otherwise have all been forward thinking and very thorough in making sure that all edges of the county have been touched. And people blame big government for being out of touch sometimes, and that's really not the case here locally. And it's good. It's been good to see. We were very easy. It was very easy to translate what the county folks wanted into reality because they were very clear about where they wanted to reach.
And also too, I was on the phone with Ryan actually today. We had a meeting today, and he was saying, there'll be billboards, and there's actually as failure pay notices go out, eviction notices go out, they created a sticker that's going to go on those notices with the information as well. And I know the courthouse had created like a helpline for people, and so and as they mentioned too, making sure we go to those different agencies that see the population that we want to serve. And so whether that's the Rescue Mission, whether that's the Frederick Community Action Agency, being at the soup kitchen, like Ms. Garner mentioned, being at those food distribution sites. So it's going to take a lot of partnerships in order to make sure that those flyers are circulating everywhere, billboards are everywhere, and we're also reaching out to, we have an extensive email list for landlords. So, sending out a blast to all of the landlords so that they know that it's available. And we've seen too, like a lot of the landlords that we work with, as they send out delinquency notices, they're starting to send out our information with the delinquency notice. And so that's going to really help to get the word out. And also, I just kind of want to touch on too, just some of the difficulties that we saw with the Spanish speaking community. One, this is beyond outreach, but just some of the ways that we want to make it easier for them to access the program. For starters, and this is even before COVID, we do not care about your your immigration status. All we care about is your residency status. If you are a resident of the county, you can qualify for the program. So that's one thing. Two, we see a lot of subleases within the Spanish speaking community. We are able to accept subleases under this program. And the self-attestation, I think, is going to be a big part too, because if you don't have pay stub, if somebody's paying you in cash, if somebody doesn't want to write a letter, you can write that certification yourself and say, this is how much I made last year. I've paid in cash. This is how my COVID has impacted me, and we can accept that. And we've also developed some forms specifically for people in these situations, regardless of what their background is. We have a housing verification form that we created that we can send out. So if you're in a sublease situation, for instance, whoever you're renting from can fill out this housing verification form and say, this person lives here, this is how much they pay in rent, they're renting a room, this is how much they're behind, and they need the assistance or they won't be able to live here anymore. And so we definitely tried to tweak some of the paperwork and create some documentation to just make it easier to reach those those populations that don't fit the quote unquote norm of what you would normally see if you were a citizen here.
I like it. That is great that you guys, Catherine did her thing. She just explained it all. And I thank you. And I definitely know that so it seems to me that you guys have definitely perfected some things from the last go around. And you guys are very aggressive about addressing this. And I'm excited that you guys are aggressive about addressing this and that you're helping our Frederick community get back on their feet. And I do thank you, Jen Gardner, for bringing the money into Frederick, and hopefully that you just keep advocating for Frederick to bring in money to Frederick that's needed and necessary. And we do have great organizations in Frederick that are definitely willing and are helping to make sure that our community is strong and they're getting the assistance that they need. Do you guys want to add anything else? Because you guys did a great job in answering anything. I think I tried to put the information in the chat. You guys can put stuff in the chat if you would like. Also in the chat, you just send it to me and I'll copy and paste it. If there's any information you would like to give to the community on how to apply. You were talking about some documents online. Are all those documents online and have to be printed, or can they do it electronically? How does that, like the housing verification, things like that, how does that put out?
They're not online. What we usually do is send it out via DocuSign. And what I love about DocuSign is that you can access that on your mobile phone. You don't have to create an account. Like, you literally can go in, fill it. We can assign the field. So you don't even have to figure out, what do I need to answer? We assign the fields that you need to answer. You can put it on your phone, fill it in, sign it, and it's electronic signature. So that's something that we can accept. And Spanish speaking communities actually does have all of the forms. So if they go through Spanish speaking communities, they have access to all the forms and can get it to them as well.
Okay, great. Did you want to add anything, Nick?
Just a real quick call out. We saw some of the comments in the thread. We had to fire Catherine today as our client service director. She is no longer employed with the Religious Coalition as a client service director. She's now our assistant director. So thank you, Catherine, for
I just
everything
seen that
you
about
have
the
done.
promotion. Great job.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you.
You better watch out, Nick.
I know she's been gunning for me for a while. That's a
Done it for your job. Oh no. Jan, did you want to add anything?
I just really want to say, if people need assistance, whether it's rental assistance or food assistance, there is assistance out there, and don't be afraid to ask for it. Certainly anybody can contact my office and we'll try to get them the assistance they need. And, you can find a lot of it on the county webpage. You can certainly go to the Religious Coalition's webpage. And I just really want people to know the help is there. Sometimes I hear people say, well, it's too hard to get, or I won't qualify, or, I don't have the paperwork that I need. And I always try to tell people, contact them, call, reach out. There's people there to help you. And that's what it's there for, is to make sure that we can make sure people thrive. And again, after this pandemic is over.
I love it.
Can I
And
just also say one more thing too? I want to say, I know we have this great program, but the Religious Coalition is not just COVID. We have other rental assistance available. We have security deposit assistance available, utility assistance, prescription assistance for those who can't afford their copays, which is probably even more prevalent now. People are getting sick, so we have the prescription assistance available. We have we're going to start having hygiene days where we give out hygiene supplies to the community. And so, that's why we always say, regardless of what it is, please, please, please contact us, because even if we can't do it, we probably know who can. And we do have, for people who were impacted by COVID, if we can't keep them in their home with the rental assistance program, we have funding to rehouse them. So we can pay their security deposit, we can help them out for a couple of months and make sure we stabilize them somewhere else so that they don't end up on the streets, they don't end up in the shelter. So regardless of what it is, please contact us, because if we can't do it, we know somebody who probably can.
And I thank you for that. I think the biggest thing that a lot of agencies like yourself and me working with a lot of agencies, I know the biggest thing is education and knowledge and things like that. If our community is not educated and knowledgeable about what's out there, things fall through the cracks. And I think that it sounds as that we're covering all those spots to make sure that people are educated and knowledgeable about what's out there. And like Jan Gardner said, please don't hesitate to ask, you guys. Like, if you know somebody that needs assistance, I don't know, call for them. Or something, because some people don't feel comfortable calling, or you can sit with them to call, but please get the assistance that's out there. The money's there, and we just need to spend. We gotta spend money. So you want to make sure that we spend it. I mean, we got till 2022, but I know there's families out there in need, and I hope that you share this video with people because it was very informative. I think you guys put out a lot of information that people can use, and it was such an honor and my pleasure to have you guys on. And thank you so much. And I will definitely see you guys in the community. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your good work.
All right. Have a good
evening.
Take care.
Bye-bye.